Break out of the business box and sit down with the FlyDuo for a series of candid conversations, granting exclusive access into the personal lives and businesses of the industry's hottest innovators, disruptors, and change makers. With more than 20 years in the game, Reuben and Sherri Johnson go back like bell bottoms and afro sheen. From SexTech and Chill to the award-winning sex-positive brand agency, Fly Media Productions. The FlyDuo are partners in life, love, crime, and everything in between. So kick off your slides and relax your feet, because this is going to be one hell of a show.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Thank you again for joining us for another Fireside chat, if I can get that out right. Today, we got some dope guests, but before I introduce our guests, I should have introduced myself. I'm your big Rue.
And I'm your girl, Sherri J.
And this is a Fireside chat by SexTech and Chill and Fly Media Productions. Today, I'm incredibly excited to introduce two hosts who are, if you're following anything in the disability community, if you're doing anything with disability accessibility and activism and advocacy, you should know these names. Andrew Gurza, who's also the host of Disability After Dark podcast. If you're not listening, you need to go listen now. Like it, sign up, all that good stuff. Karneshia Shantel, if you're not aware of her yet, you should be following her on IG. And you should be following the work that she's doing. I'm incredibly appreciative that these two were willing to sit down and have a quick conversation with us. Welcome to the show, both of you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for having me.
So I think that to give a little inside baseball to the audience, Karneshia, we initially got connected to you a few years ago when we were doing a rebrand of the Fly Media Productions website, and Andrew, I think, was the person who introduced us to you. We saw your work on IG. We were immediately like blown away. Like, okay, this is dope. We gotta figure out a way to like license some of your work to incorporate into how we were gonna do our rebrand, because it was just really dope. So yeah, I can't thank you enough. This is the first time we actually got to like sit down with you face to face and chop it up. And I'm really appreciative that this is happening. Thank you so much. Thank
y'all, and thank you, Andrew, for that connect.
Oh, of course. I can't believe it's the first time you guys are sitting down together. Wow.
I know.
Yeah, it's. I guess that's kind of our bad. I'm glad that this happened, though. I wish it hadn't taken so long.
It was a whirlwind. That the redesign of that whole project was a whirlwind. Yeah. But yes, I agree. It is a little late.
Yeah, it is.
But glad it's happening.
Exactly. Andrew, I can't I don't know. We've talked a million times. We worked with you recently. We worked on a project. We hired you for accessibility testing for the Tech We Want project. I was so appreciative that you did that, and not only that, like the way that worked. And then obviously you've written some articles for us, and I mean, I love working with you. I can't speak highly enough of you.
Thank you.
And obviously fans of your podcast as well. I'm going to flip it back to Karneshia, because I've been intrigued about this for a minute. Because like your entire personal brand, super strong. You do the ADA consulting. You are a disability advocate, but you also are at the intersection because you also have cultural clout. You do fashion. You have the entertainment connect. Like, do those things how do those things advocate your advocacy? And then I guess the first question, if I roll it back, how did you actually find yourself in the role that you're in? Like, what brought you there? And then how do you leverage your fashion, entertainment, cultural clout and as part of what you do?
Well, I think so. I would say I arrived at this space around 2017, 2016. I was in corporate America, and I ended up getting fired from corporate America. And I was like, this can't be life. Like, I didn't even enjoy my job, first of all. And then to turn around and get fired for it, I was like, all right, let's take another direction. Something else has to give. So I started to think about the things I really enjoy, which was entertainment. And I enjoy body positivity and fashion. So I was like, let's try to tie all these things together and see what I can come up with. So in order to sustain myself, I started to do nails full time, which was something that I did in college on the side. So I do that full time. But my passion lies in disability advocacy, body positivity, and trying to make a way for us in the entertainment industry.
Oh, that's really dope. I look like you like nails, entertainment. Like those are all things that for me speak deep to me. So I appreciate it. I mean, corporate America's loss is our gain. So
Yeah,
hell yes to that. I was just gonna ask you another question. I literally thought of it and I just forgot it.
About combining our passions.
Yes, because that's what I thought about when you said.
Sounds familiar.
What was that like for you? Like, is it just something that's inherently always who you've been? Like, how did you? Because when there's no model to follow, when there's no roadmap, I know a lot of just doing something that's not being done is hard. What was that like for you? Like doing that?
It's difficult. I mean, it's still difficult to this day, but I will say starting off, I felt like I didn't have any direction. It's just like I'm hitting the ground rolling and I don't know where I'm going. So like I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have anybody to show me the way or anything. Like all the wonderful people I've met has been along the way. Like Andrew, I met along the way. One of the first people I connected with on the disability side was Stephanie Thomas from Curatable. She immediately like took me under her wing and started teaching me about disability advocacy, the things that she does, and fashion styling, and I'm just soaking it up like a sponge, like to this day.
That's really dope. Like the fact, what is the biggest thing that you have learned that you take with you that makes it easier for you that moving forward, or maybe a better question is, what do you know now that you wish you knew then starting that would have maybe made it even smoother for you?
That's a good question. Being that I feel like I'm constantly learning, I think that I wish I knew just how lonely it would be, if I'm being honest.
That's real.
What do you do to find community? Is like, how do you?
That's a good question
Because you saying that made me think of what Tamela J. Gordon said last week, talking about that. And I imagine community, when you're feeling lonely, community could be helpful. What do you do to find community?
Well, I live in Birmingham, Alabama. So where I'm from in Mississippi, I was the only I was the only girl with spina bifida for like 10 years. Another one came, but she was much younger than me. And I was the only black girl. So you just tie that all in together. I started off lonely, first of all, but I was never like heavy in advocacy or nothing like that. So when I moved to Birmingham, my initial goal was be a nurse, play basketball. That's all I knew because I played basketball in Mississippi. So when I found the Lakeshore Foundation, I found a little piece of my community there. And a lot of those people are still my friends now. So they lie heavy in my like personal community. But as far as my online community, Instagram.
Okay.
Instagram really helped me branch out and find my people.
That's really dope. I mean, that's kind of how we met Andrew to begin with.
So many people, especially in the disabled community, have said the same thing every time we ask. It's social media. It's super important for staying connected. And then with being disabled and in business, where most of us are working from home, social media is super important.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm hoping we can add you to our community alongside Andrew too. I know Sherri had a question.
Yeah, I was going to
for Andrew. Could I
throw
ask?
It over to Andrew? Yeah.
Could I ask Andrew one first?
Yes.
How do you find community, Andrew? Like, because I mean, you're someone that so many people respect and know, but I'm sure like you probably, I would imagine you face similar challenge or have faced similar challenges with finding community and sustaining that side of what we need as people. What has that been like for you?
I mean, that's a loaded question. I think community and disability, especially online, is really hard because there are accepted things you're allowed to talk about, and then if you veer out of those lanes, people get really upset really fast. And so I think what I learned online is that I don't feel like we're one big community. I feel like we're a fractured community with a bunch of little communities inside it, and we have to come together. We need to really find a way to unify because so much of our time is spent explaining why we use this terminology, explaining why I say it this way, explaining why I believe this. And we're infighting with each other so much that it's really taking away from a lot of our missions and our dreams and our hopes. And so I'm very grateful for the community that I have and that I built and that follows me, but I don't always love it. It's not always my favorite thing. Sometimes I'll take a break from online because I want to go and be in the real world and touch grass and be with actual people that I know every day. And so I'm very grateful for it, and I can't pretend like online didn't help me have what I have. But it also is really hard to have an opinion that falls outside of the very strict lines of what you're allowed to talk about as a disabled person online.
Damn, I appreciate you keeping the buck with us.
I know you have a follow-up question to that you had talked about earlier. If you want to get to that one before I jump into it.
Oh yeah, okay. So well then, with
It's a
that
perfect
being said,
timing.
like you basically just broke down that it's not a monolith, and there's a lot of visible figures around the umbrella of disability. Y'all do brand work. Y'all work with brands, entities like nonprofits, governments, what have you. And a lot of times, like the work you're doing, you probably are, I would imagine you're not always relaying information that the people on the other end are excited to be able to receive. And then
Yeah.
even what you were saying, Andrew, like just talking online and stuff, a lot of times you know what is acceptable to say and what isn't. How do you navigate being, keeping the buck, being 100 about what you say and what you don't say, knowing that there's potential repercussions either professionally with, say, a client or what have you, or a colleague, and then also just socially within the wider disabled community online? And
You
that's for
prep a
both of
lot of apology posts of like, oh, I might have said something wrong. Oh no, better fix that. And you really, because IG can be pretty ruthless. They don't care if you made a mistake. They don't care if you said the wrong thing. If you step in the wrong lane, and they'll be very quick to remind you that you've done something wrong. And so I have messed up royally a number of times and been called out quite quickly on it, which sometimes I agree with their assessment. Like, oh, I gotta fix that. Let me come back around. You just try to be like, I'm a human. I'm a person. I made a mistake. Like that's why I struggle calling myself an influencer or like I don't. People call me that all the time, and I hate that because I am not. I mean, It's very nice to be called influential, but I mess up constantly, and I don't want somebody to not to think that I'm such a big brand and I'm such a big whatever that I'm not a human and that I don't make mistakes and totally falter. And so that's why disability awareness consultant is my title, because I want to consult with you. I want to sit with you. I want to talk with you. And I want to be aware of my own privilege and my own mistakes and my own ways that I can grow and learn and change without being beholden to what, a couple thousand people online think of me, which it can be really hard to have a platform and know that anything you say, even the tiniest thing, can be scrutinized.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And I would say, I think sometimes a lot of the titles that go influencer, thought leader, what have you, sometimes I think we have like a mistaken idea that just being public and being listened to and having a platform means you can't be human and make mistakes too. I think the best of us make mistakes and own it and talk about it honestly,
Yeah.
publicly. That's my opinion. That's what I would like to see more of. How about you, Karnisha? What you thinking as far as that same question?
I respect Andrew for having his apology post ready to go. I have not arrived there yet. I
I had
don't.
a different approach.
Which
I
is
have not,
cool.
because like he said, we are human, and you can't scrutinize every mistake, because honestly it's a mistake, and he and I can only speak from our own experiences most of the time.
Yeah.
So it's like if we make a mistake, it's genuinely a mistake. All I can do is correct it, but I'm more than likely not going to apologize for it. I'll correct it though, but I'm not, especially if you're coming at me sideways.
Mhm.
I
Size
can, I
of
can,
DM versus like just
I
spewing
can,
all over your comments, There's a time and there's a way to address things too.
Right.
I mean,
I come at you the way you come at me. No, just kidding.
no, I respect that. I mean, I obviously, I think, like, for me, I can only speak for myself. If I fuck up, I try to own it, what have you. But if I feel a certain kind of way and other people don't agree with it, that's when, if I'm being true to me, I should be holding the line and being like, you know what, you feel that way, I feel this way, cool. But it is what it is. I might be talking about something that you're not feeling, and you feel some type of way about it, but it doesn't,
you gotta own your view first, and if you genuinely
want
to address it.
Yeah.
I also think that a lot of us are pushed to talk about things. I'll give you an example that happened to me personally quite recently. I was pushed to talk about the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. Somebody was like, "Oh, tell me your opinion." So I made a post, not really taking a side and saying, "Here's what I think," and I was not educated at the point, and I just made the post and didn't think anything of it. I was like, "You want me to give my opinion? I will." And I was scared by IG quite quickly, and because I was uneducated, and then I had to prep an apology post and be like, "Wow, I didn't do my research. I didn't do enough research to understand what was happening. I'm so sorry." But like, I think because we are public figures, we are pushed by our online audience to, "Oh, you should say something. You should address this." And for me, I often get, "Why aren't you addressing this? It's a disability issue." And so I wanted to be up on what's current and say my piece, but then I realized, like, whoa, my view was completely wrong, and I had to go back and take some time away and be like, "Wow, I really messed up. I better do some research and talk to some people that are living those experiences and see where I fucked up royally." And so I did that. But I think the expectation that we as disabled influencers or thought leaders have to always speak up on something can be really toxic, because sometimes we don't have something to say, and sometimes it's not our place. For me, sometimes as a white disabled person, I should not be speaking, and I should not be talked to, and I can support other people and amplify what they're saying, but I shouldn't be asked about things that are not my experience. I will often now say, "Oh, go talk to other friends of mine who are disabled people of color. Talk to them. Amplify their voice, because my voice is not as important right now. I'm going to sit this one out."
Yeah, I appreciate that. You said a lot of. It looked like you wanted to say something, Karneshia. I'm gonna pass the mic over to you, and I think more of us should be passing the mic, especially like, we got folks who are friends who are Palestinian, Sudanese, Haitian, from the Congo, like Ukrainian, like etc. Pass the mic, amplify their platform, and then, like you said, Andrew, like getting educated about an area. We all fuck up. I mean, I have fucked up. I fucked up with misquoting someone. They called me out in public, and they told me I was wrong. That's not how, I misinterpreted what they had said, but the way I framed it made it like they said something completely opposite. They called me out. I acknowledged it. I apologized, deleted my shit, and felt stupid as fuck. But I'm glad they said something. And it is what it is, because like you said, we all fuck up at times. Were you gonna say something, Karneshia? It looked like you might have been thinking something.
Oh, I was agreeing that with our platforms, we can only speak on what we know. And I don't think it's fair for people to ask us to speak on things that we may not be comfortable speaking on. And now on the flip side of that, I do agree that people with platforms should speak up on important events, but I don't think that we should feel pressured to doing so if we're not comfortable speaking on it.
Yeah.
And before you're ready, I think that's another thing with the internet and news and media. People are so quick to have an opinion on everything that people who actually care feel the pressure to make a statement before they might be ready as well. I'm very similar, and I'm like, I feel the pressure to say something soon, but I have to take a step back and make sure they know what the hell I'm talking about, and I'm commenting on the right things in the appropriate way. I think that's really important too, is just not to give into the pressure of, oh, something happened, we feel it's bad, we have to say something, instead of taking the time to really think about how we feel and the impact and what it means even for our audience, because
is it important for you to put that on your platform? Like, you can feel a certain way, Do you have to share it with everyone? Is it really that important? Is it? Who knows? Like, and
Right.
sometimes when it comes down to, I'm working with this brand, I need money. Do I have to tell this viewpoint I have? No, I really don't need to. I'll just leave it alone. Because you sometimes you're like, I gotta feed myself, and if I make this big statement, I could lose advertisers, I could lose um, people that community members that I care about, and so like I think picking and choosing because we all know that online is a little bit of a heightened version of who we are. So you pick and choose parts of yourself that you want to share. I'm very open about. I've learned that it's better to just talk about my experience, period,
Right.
and not try to go outside. Like obviously, if it's a big thing, like I'll talk on let's don't kill Black disabled folks. That'll share forever and ever. But like if it's something that I have no experience on, I'm gonna probably just be quiet and say, you know what, let me talk to it out.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think one of the challenging thing is that I see like we all have that we're all going to deal with from time to time because none of us can have every lived experience. Is like when we see times of like what's happening right now in other countries, and we're like we know we want to be involved or we want to amplify or we want to support. But to go to what you were saying, Andrew, and I've seen multiple people post about it, we also know that this could have speaking on it, especially at a time when everyone else is not speaking on it, can have a detrimental impact on our income. And I think that is an ongoing challenging thing to navigate. Like I'm one to speak on a lot of things, but it also has repercussions too. Has repercussions on our business side, has repercussions on opportunities you might get. And I think
And
that
you and we all
okay,
understand that as disabled folks, we don't. I mean, all of us are pretty much freelance, so like
yep,
we don't. We got to get a project and make it work. And so sometimes it's like if I just stay in my lane and do what I know to do, I can actually make that money and not have to work. Like I don't want to be cash poor because I made a statement. But I mean, again, if it comes to something like something that I think is like universally understood as important, like Palestinian people shouldn't die or Black disabled people shouldn't be killed by police, like that. I'm
yeah,
obviously going to speak on that, but also
Right.
we have to. I have to think about it as a white disabled creator. How does racism prop me up and to do my job and allow me to go in these spaces where Karneshia couldn't go? So I am really thinking about that now as I launch my book and I do all this stuff. Like, if I was a Black disabled creator, would I have the same reach that I have? Would I have the same name recognition that I do? And it's shameful that there is so much racism within our community. So when Black disabled creators talk about disability is too white, I mean, I nod my head and I go, yeah, it is. And so I have the power as a white disabled person to say, you know what, I'm not going to speak on this. I'm going to defer to Karneshia. I'm going to send you to Imani Barbarin, or I'm going to send you to other friends that I know that live that experience that don't have a big platform or don't have as big of a platform as I do and should be amplified.
yeah, I think that's a winning strategy across the board when it comes to a lot of things. I think that's huge. I mean, I think it takes being an empathetic, a thoughtful, and a person who desires to see things change for the positive and for the better to even have that type of perspective. And I mean, I've seen that in you for since I've known you. So,
Right.
yeah, I think I lost my point.
No, I
To
think
wrap up
I
this.
think yeah, I think this is very important, and it's not so black and white. It's very nuanced,
Yeah,
and
I
clear.
mean I agree because I mean I on in the work that I do, I've been calling out brands in general, like not freelancers or independent consultants or contractors, but brands in general. I've been calling them out for years to say, hey, have a stance on social issues because your customers are impacted by these things. You've got the budgets, the money,
Yeah.
the ability to at least be involved in a positive sense, to do what you can to leverage the massive footprints that brands often have to make positive impact. But I also know that brands are not the same thing as individual people, and all brands are different. But I think that you have both shown in your individual platforms different strategies of how you get involved and how you're working to make positive systems, like impact systems for the positive. I think brands can do similar, but they're going to do it differently than individuals like yourselves do it. I don't think it's always like a straight road. And I think it's always changing because the roadmap of how our society works just is constantly in flux. Let me get off my soapbox for a second.
You're right, though. You're right.
Yeah.
And
Speaking of brands,
yeah, I was going to say, speaking of brands, this segues beautifully. There's like I said, I've been wanting brands to get involved. I've said it on stages. I've encouraged them to like leverage their massive budgets, impact, and all of that. And then I think about a commercial that just went viral within like the last couple of months. It's the Down Syndrome Awareness Challenging Assumptions campaign that was created by an agency called Small in collaboration with another agency. What is it? Indiana Productions. So
It was a commercial where she was getting a beer, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm actually gonna cue it up for you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna play it in. If y'all give me a second, I'm gonna play it out because this thing resonated real strong for us. Like, we do campaigns, we do visual design, we do brand experience. We saw this thing's like, yes, more of this, please. Give me 1 second to
and then we'd love to get y'all's thoughts.
Oh yeah, I should have followed it up.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm not just playing it to play. I mean, it's a dope commercial. I wanted to get y'all's insights on it because this is like your wheelhouse. Yeah, give me 1 second and let me play this.
You assume that I cannot drink a margarita, so you don't serve me a margarita? So I don't drink a margarita. Your assumption becomes reality. And parents, you assume that I cannot live on my own, so you don't encourage me to live on my own. So I don't live on my own. Coach, you assume that I cannot hit harder, so you don't train me to hit harder, so I don't hit harder. And teacher, you assume that I cannot learn Shakespeare, so you don't teach me Shakespeare.
Old MacDonald had a farm.
So I don't learn Shakespeare. E-I-E-I-O. But hey, if all your assumptions become reality, then assume that I can drink a margarita. So you serve me a margarita. So I drink a margarita. Assume that I can live on my own. So I live on my own. Assume that I can hit harder. So I hit harder. Assume that I can learn Shakespeare. So, what fools these mortals be? I learned fucking Shakespeare. You assume I can't swear, right? Assume that I can do that job. That I can go to parties. That I can have sex. That I can be on stage. Assume that I can. So maybe I will.
Okay, core down. That's what it was. So with that commercial in mind, which I personally think is super dope, I'd love to get like both of y'all, like, how did that resonate for you? How do you think brands, what is one thing you think brands are doing wrong that if they stop doing it ASAP, it'll make disabled representation and disabled folks' lives better? And what is one actionable thing you think brands could do right now to actually do the opposite, to make representation better, to positively impact the experiences of disabled customers that are their consumers? I'm gonna ask you both.
Karneshia looks ready to go.
Okay, we'll hit you up, Karneshia. Take it
Yeah,
over.
you look like you have thoughts.
I think that I love that commercial, and I think
No.
that it's a lot of disability, a lot of people with disabilities reality, to be honest.
Mhm.
I think, yes, more of this, but what they can do better. I've seen a lot of commercials that have started incorporating people with disabilities, like lots, and I think that's great. The downside, the commercials I've seen, white people.
There you go.
So
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. Yeah.
They're great for representation, but are we representing everybody?
that's 100 right there. Right there. Brands.
And we know there are Black people with Down syndrome. We know that, like,
Yep.
I have a
Where are
cousin.
they?
Like I have a cousin right now. She's 12 years old. She loves entertainment. I'm sure she loves that commercial.
So right
But she would
there.
love it more if she saw herself in that commercial.
Say that one more time.
She would love it more if she saw herself in that commercial.
Exactly.
Exactly. I think seeing reflections of you is hugely important. So I mean, that right there, that's one thing they could do is how they're doing representation beyond just white folks. Who are the other folks who deserve to see themselves as much as all the white folks? Because everyone should see themselves, like white folks, black folks, Palestinian folks, Latin folks, all the folks.
All the folks.
Can I just say, as a white person who watched that commercial, I saw myself in it as a disabled person. And it spoke to me as, even though I have an invisible illness, it very much spoke to me because a lot of the assumptions are still, everyone who's disabled has assumptions put on them. And I saw myself in it, but it just shows, again, I'm a white person watching the commercial. That was not something that crossed my mind. And then I'm seeing in Karnesia's face, like, I saw that, like, that's missing right away. Like, that's why it's so important that there are other people in the room. The true representation of diversity is in the room to call these things out, because I was just like impressed that I saw myself as a disabled person in somebody else's disability. I wasn't even thinking beyond that.
Yeah, and I think that's huge, especially when you look at that group shot at the end of the commercial and you think about who's in there and who's not in there. And I think that right there.
I didn't see a lot of black folks in that group shot either. Where was that?
Go ahead, I'm listening.
And as a severely disabled person who needs help, I didn't really see myself in that commercial because I can't live alone. I do need help with stuff. I need support. I mean, I can drink a margarita, yes, but I need, for me to go to the club, I need help in the bathroom. I need help to have sex. I need help to go to school. I need help to do all the things that she was doing. So I think it's important. But what about the section of the population that does need more support? Why can't they have a commercial where somebody in a wheelchair who has a support worker beside them who's like, my support worker is helping me do that? Like, it should have been a number of commercials to highlight each section of our community to show that disability is not a monolith.
Yeah.
And one representation isn't good enough. They could have redone that same commercial with a wheelchair user, with somebody with invisible disability, somebody with, a stutter, somebody with, ADD, somebody with, whatever. There's a number of disabilities I can name, but whatever it is, a number of disabilities, to be like, the commercial is different every time, but it's highlighting that each of these people can do these things, but differently.
Yeah, I mean, I think we definitely need more commercials that are highlighting more things. In fairness to this one, it was specifically only about Down syndrome because it was for.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean you can't have multiple
right.
disabilities at the same time as well, because we all know that's a reality as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I think having her swear and say fucking in the commercial was incredible and important and so fun and good.
Yeah.
But then when it's like Spina Bifida Awareness Month or CP Awareness Month, switch up the video and hire do the same kind of idea, but make it about assumptions around spina bifida, assumptions around wheelchair users. We're gonna see this as the Paralympics start soon. We're gonna see all of this inspiration porn kind of thrust at us again because there are these high powered athletes who are doing great things, and again, they're amazing, good for them. But it's going to show us again through media that to be disabled, you have to overcome and you have to do all these things. And for the average disabled person who needs support, or even those who don't need support, you're never going to overcome it. You're just trying to live your day. And so I think we're going to see the media falter at this again when it comes to the Olympics. They're going to use words like amazing, inspirational, wow, look at you for doing that. And yes, what they're doing is amazing and inspirational. But these broadcasters are not going to have any idea the impact that it's going to have on the disabled person watching at home who can't afford to eat because their SSI was cut this week, or their state decided that they didn't get food stamps because they're not stable enough.
I love that you point that out. I'm gonna keep it a buck too. Like it was after listening to a couple of your Disability After Dark shows and then being on your show and the conversation that we had, and a couple other people, you helped me like really rethink, because I have not always been like what do you call it, vocal across regular public sphere about my own disabilities, and like I always had a challenge. Like I didn't want nobody to see me as weak. I didn't want nobody like thinking they going to fuck with me, like, because I'm just not that person. Like don't
Yeah.
fuck with me. Like I'm cool, but I'm not that cool. You know what I mean? But you helped me to see the idea of, I see the toxicity in the idea of you can't be weak, because reality is, like so many folks have brought out, at some point most of our population is going to be disabled, and that includes mobility, that includes your strength, that includes needing help.
I mean, people don't like this when I say this, but I'll say it again. People have called me out on this a bunch of times, but I think it's true. If you're lucky to live long enough, you're gonna be disabled.
I say it all the time too. They better suck it up, because it's true.
Because it's coming for you, and not in a scary way, but like it's coming for you. So we better start talking about it now. And I think in disability community, you talked a minute ago about like what makes community. When you're born with a disability versus acquiring it, there's a huge chasm between those experiences, and we're not talking about those enough. We still, especially in American context, we still have, oh, you're paralyzed? That's the only way we can talk about disability around you. Oh, you had an accident? I can talk about disability with you because you were once like me, so it's safe to talk about it with you. But if I roll up and say, yo, I was born disabled, can I talk about it too? They're like, oh no, you're an alien. How? So there's a huge rift, I think, between acquired disability and congenital disability. And I think we need to really, our community has to do some hard looks at itself to be like, why? This is part of why we're so fractured, is we're not respecting each other's experience enough to get past all that shit and work together.
I think that's huge. I think too, we have, like, from speaking from my own experience, the generational issue. Like, because when I was coming up, unless you like, if you could hide your disability, you did. I mean, that's what I learned to do. I was congenital, so I was born with all these things, and I did as much as I could to hide it, because everything that showed was a negative impact. It adversely impacted school, work, like literally everything. So, and you're raised with the whole inspo porn, like you're like kind of like what you're alluding to, where it's like, oh, I don't need accommodations, oh, XYZ, because I don't want this to adversely affect how I'm perceived, and that's going to affect what opportunities I have and whatnot. That's why I really appreciate the work folks like you two are doing, because being out in the front of this and talking about it openly is like my bad, my mic is going off. Is like, I know that is something that's new. It's something that's like, this wasn't happening 20 years ago. Not in the, at least from my point of view. We weren't seeing it 20 years ago the way we're seeing it now. And I think like you're changing how all of us see not only ourselves who are disabled, but also how the wider population experiences and understands what disability looks like in others. And then, like you're saying, even ultimately for themselves, if they're lucky enough to live long enough.
To that point, we have time for one more question before we already get to the Q&A part. And I wanted to ask you both, when it comes to disability and sexuality, because this is Sex Tech and Chill, and Andrew is, Disability After Dark, what is one misconception that you would like to dispel today?
What's one misconception I want to dispel today? Disabled people fuck, and we're pretty good at it. If you go back and listen to the conversation I had with Karneshia a couple years ago, we had some pretty sexy chats. I remember we talked about our fantasies about what we wanted, and it got pretty blue. So like we We fuck, we talk about it, we laugh about it. It's part of our experience. And also, disabled people deserve access to sex work. We deserve access to sex toys. We deserve access to pleasure. And we're still, it's 2024, almost 2025, and it's still a scary topic. And that is scary because when anybody who's listening who's not disabled right now, when you become disabled, you're going to want to have sex. And guess what? You're going to need support for it. So we better start talking about it now.
I couldn't agree 100%. More. And it's got to be more than just Viagra. It's got to be more it's got to be the challenging conversations that culturally stigma has said people don't want to have. That's where the gains are. That's where the gains are. Like those conversations, understanding why we might feel some kind of way as far as stigma attached to.
I wish we could just say we're scared. Just tell me the truth. You're scared of my sexuality. That's fine. I don't hold that against you. But now let me prove you wrong. Let me show you that it doesn't have to be scary. But also at the same time, let me show you that, like, guess what? I'm scared that my body can't do all the things that I wanted to do sexually either. That's scary for me. And there's no real, like, when we talk about sex and disability, it's so much to appease an able-bodied audience to like prove to an able-bodied person that I am fuckable, that I am worth this experience. Yeah. That I will prove to you that I'm worthy enough. Part of me is like, fuck that. I don't want to prove it. I'm already worthy of it. But it's exhausting to constantly have the same conversation of like, I deserve to be here. I deserve to be in the room. And I deserve to show you. Like I work in queer male spaces a lot of the time. And I'm constantly bumping up against, oh, so you can have sex all the time. And it's like, wow, if you said that to a queer, non-disabled man, they would look at you like, why would you say that? But for some reason, it's okay for them to parrot the same thing back to me. And I'm supposed to go, oh, of course I can. It's okay. Thank you for asking. I think we need to.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Thinking. Go ahead. I'll let you finish.
I didn't even know what I was going to say, so it's okay.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, to add to what you were saying, one way to like put it out that, disabled people fuck too is especially pleasure brands. You're putting out articles in all these, trying to get your toys and your products in mainstream articles and things like that. Talk about how disabled people can use your products and how to have better sex. I saw an article the other day. It was how to sex positions for hip pain. And I was like, I can still relate to that. It has nothing to do with my disability today, but I can relate to that. And that is the same thing with aging. We need more content that speaks to the different things that all of us experience, because it's not the same for everyone. And that is one way to get everybody thinking about disability and sex as nothing different.
I mean, we need to have the same conversation within disabled community. Disability is not the same for everyone, period. So, like, but in terms of brand, I'll just speak to our brand that we had. Our brand, Bumpin', we closed shop and shut it down because we couldn't afford the money to get it to a full production run. We had a toy ready to go, but we would need about $1 million in angel investors to get it even close to off the ground. And it was just my sister and I working on it. I was in Canada, she's in Australia. We both decided that, like, fuck, this is too hard. And we like, nobody's buying our toy. Everybody's afraid of sex and disability. Trying to market it to disabled folks is hard because they have no money and they want to support it, but they're broke. Trying to market it to venture capitalists is hard because they're not disabled and they have no idea what we're talking about and why should they care. So eventually we were like, we'd love to have it and we'd love to make it go, but we can't. We were like to the point where we couldn't function anymore because we didn't have any money. So it's a shame that we all talk about inclusion and diversity in these, especially in brands, constantly using the word diversity, equity, inclusion, but they're not actually putting their money where their mouth is. So like when it comes to brands, to answer an earlier question you had, like what do? You hire disabled folks. You make sure that disabled folks are front and center, right next to your CEO. In our company, I was the co-founder, but I was also the chief disability officer, which no company really had at that point. I think we made the term up by ourselves, and we distinctly chose disability officer because I didn't want access. I didn't want it to be washed away by accessibility. I wanted disability to be front and center in the name so people would pay attention. And everything that we did to make sure the company go, I would look at all the copy. I would make sure that it was as not as ableist as possible. I would make sure that it was as palatable to both communities, non-disabled and disabled as possible. But having me at the forefront really allowed the toy and our progress with the toy to go as far as we could go with it. But I think, we just needed more. We needed more awareness, and it was really hard to get that when there was only two of us. And I think a lot of brands should pay us. People like Karneshia and I, please pay us. We're here. Hi,
Please.
hello, pay us. We want to be the face of your movement. We want to help you grow, but also we deserve to be appropriately paid, compensated for our work. I can't tell you how many brands have approached me and they'll say, "Oh, it's a paid collab," and they'll go, "And you okay? What is it?" And they'll go, "Oh, it's $50." You're like, "Well, I can't live on that." What? So I think there's still this assumption that because we're disabled, we'll take less than, and we deserve less than, and we'll just take it. And sometimes you're like, "Yeah, I got to keep the lights on this week. That $50 will really help me." But sometimes it's like, I'm worth at least a couple thousand. Can you figure it out?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that makes absolute sense. And I think that plays into the whole idea of that sub-minimum wage, where especially it seems as though the more visibly disabled you are, the less they think they can get away with trying to pay you. And that goes the whole thing of exploitation and labor and all that as well. You said there's a lot in what you said. I'm curious when you talk about Bumper right now, because y'all, if I remember right, y'all have opened it up to being taken over by someone else. Do you mind?
I mean,
What's next with that?
Yeah, nobody's approached us yet. We opened it up for somebody with basically $1 million to step in and grow the brand. We tried to work with Love Honey, who's a great brand. They eventually said, we don't want it. We don't really think we can produce this. So we lost that company, and then it was literally my sister and I, and she is the marketing brain, and I am the beautiful show pony that goes out there and shows how great it was. So we worked really well together because she put the brand strategy together. She put all the copy together, and I literally got to go there and be the face of it, which is great. But also then, we had issues where we had a $99 deposit for a pre-order of the toy, and then we had to say to you, the $99 deposit is non-refundable. It went to making the toy. Even if we can't bring it to production, we still got to keep that money because that kept the company alive. And so we faced a little bit of backlash from people saying, "Oh, well, you stole from us, you stole from disabled folks." And we went, "No, we didn't. Every cent you gave us, we put it towards the thing," but then we couldn't move it forward. I think a lot of disabled folks, when you're running a business around disability, there's always risk, especially when you're doing something like we were doing, where we're bringing a new toy onto an already oversaturated sexuality market. People were excited about it but afraid about it. So my sister and I just looked at each other one day and said, "We can't do this anymore. We got to be done." And we just closed shop and said, "It's still open. If somebody magically wants to come into our inbox and give us $1 million to then have license over the brand, we've stepped away." And so we did our best. Thank you, but we're basically have washed our hands of it because it just wasn't going to go anywhere. Our mental health was more important than trying to push this toy out.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine it must have been incredibly challenging. I'm sure you learned a lot through your experience. I really wish that y'all had been able to get all the funding that you deserve to get because
super innovative product.
It's incredibly innovative. And I'm hoping there's a Lalo or a Hot Octopus or, a wealth of other brands who are going to say, "Hitachi, you step in and get involved." Because
it's funny. We talked to Hot Octopus. We kind of were talking to them because they were doing similar stuff. And they said to us a couple of years ago, "We can't even sell one of our disabled sex toys. It's really hard for us to get that sold because of the stigma around sex and disability." So when we heard that, we were like, "Okay, we tried. All right, we gave it a shot. If they can't sell their toys and they're already an established name, what are we doing?" So we had to think about the realities, and we couldn't. My sister pitched to so many accelerators, so many, and we got a little bit of money to keep it going for a couple of years to build a brand. But when we realized it would take 50,000 to or 500,000 to $1 million to make it go, she just said, I can't. And I'm in Australia, and she's in Australia, and I'm here. There's no way we could have done it. It just made sense to shutter it. But the things I learned were that like disabled and non-disabled folks can work together quite well if you put disability centric stuff at the forefront and make it a story for everyone. So when we pitched the toy, we said, yes, this is a disability centric sex toy, but if you have arthritis, joint pain, trouble with your hands, if you're elderly and you want to masturbate, this toy is also for you. So we really tried to make it something that was accessible to everyone.
Yeah, I think y'all did a great job in that messaging. In that, I'm gonna switch gears, do a hard segue. That's not even a segue, because we're right at the 10 minutes left. I can't believe this conversation went as fast as it did.
Thankfully, no one had any questions
Yeah,
today.
yeah. So we didn't even get to all of our questions because y'all just like ran with it.
I think it just
really
shows how
smart.
important the subject is, and that there's a lot more work to be done.
Oh yeah.
With that being said, I'm gonna switch over our layout, and I'm gonna invite Leslie Camacho to the stage, and we're going to have Leslie's integrated insights. Give me one moment. And Leslie is not only a business advisor, he's an EOS implementer. He is a lot of things. Friend, found family, a lot of things. He's going to sum up and share some insights based on the conversation we just had. So I've cut into Leslie's time a little bit. I'm going to let Leslie take it from here. What you got for us, Leslie?
Well, first of all, again, Reuben and Sherri, every time I get invited to be a part of this, it is such a humbling experience. I learn and grow as a person so much, and today is no exception to that. A theme that emerged quickly is how lonely it is to do some of the things that we do. So I wanted to start from like a business standpoint and just acknowledge that entrepreneurship as a default state is lonely. Even if you are, quote, successful, even if you have a team around you, like some of the entrepreneurs I work with, they'll have like a 30-person team. And one of the things they tell me is I'm so lonely just all the time. And one of the things with being lonely is that we all bring layers to it. So if there's disability, if there's like there's always going to be some systemic thing, some human bias that just like, so my lonely is going to have a different challenge than others people's. And so there's just a layer of loneliness that builds. And one of the things that Andrew and Karneshia, you both talked about that I thought was really powerful is we have to be learning all the time. Like I love, Karneshia, that your initial answer was, like I just learn by default. And that's one of the primary ways to break out of that loneliness, because especially with the work that we do, often when we're outside the lines, is we can't learn in isolation. Like the work requires community. And then Anne quickly brought in, but it's so challenging because every community has its biases, its rules, etc. So when you start playing outside those lines, like the fractiousness of how you talked about it was really important. I think it was really important to just call out and acknowledge how in both your stories, we don't want to let each other be people. You're an influencer, or you're a brand, or you have a product, or you have the book. And Andrew, I think you expressed it so just honest. It's like, I just want to be a human in conversation. And Karneshia, you immediately added on to that. And that was the thing that really stood out to me is so much of you put yourselves out there in a really powerful way. And the challenge in what we do is, how do we balance being compassionate while holding people accountable? And that is its own challenge. And I loved how you both have different approaches to that were powerful to learn from. And then we got into the commercial. I think the commercial itself was a great example of that challenge of loneliness. yes, it was a powerful commercial, but in Karneshia, you just spoke the truth, but it's white people. And to me, that's a theme that happens that I have my own bias that I bring to this that I want to express, and just to help other people learn from it, is that what we want to, like, as soon as I see myself represented, I feel like, oh, job's done. Job's done. I see myself represented. I feel good. It takes extra work to do what Andrew did and said, but it was white. Where's Karneshia in this? What's my privilege that other people don't have? I have to do that work for myself just all the time. It's incredibly powerful. So one of the things that, like, the theme I wanted to pull out here to wrap it up is that you both do such a powerful, skillful job of making the world bigger. Like, at the end of the day, you blow the world up. It's not narrow. It's not small. Aren't these lines. There's things out of that. You both bring the whole human into it. Coming from my generation, like, we were taught, like, no, the way you get rid of racism is you just don't see color. So I don't have my black friend Reuben. It's just Reuben. I don't see that as black. There's an erasure that I grew up with that is so damaging. And you are just the opposite of that. I'm the whole human. Talk to me like a human. Respect everything I bring to the table. Champion unapologetically. And I just thank you for doing that so front and center, because it's incredibly hard work. And I love how you just make the world a bigger place while holding people accountable for their shit. And I think that's the thing. Like, we can't have that ruinous empathy. It was like, oh, well, they'll get there eventually. No, you got to hold that line. The end, I thought my favorite line of the whole conversation was towards the end there, was like, yeah, Andrew, what's one thing you want to know? And you're like, disabled people fuck, and then Karneshia without missing a beat. And we're good at it too. I was like, yes. Unapologetic, no hesitation, just like, fuck yeah. That's amazing. That's what I mean. World bigger, the whole person right there, like in a nutshell there. So, like, I always come in the whole conversation, we deserve access to pleasure. Yeah, hell yes, you do. Hell yes, we all do. So at the end of these things, I've always learned, I quickly learned in this segment, how do we help? First thing is give money, invest, hire them, buy their products, subscribe, go to their websites. Don't just sit back and listen. Oh, that was a really nice conversation. Please, in the next minute, take action, go subscribe, buy, consider, do something more than just have a moment of feeling good about those things. So that's what I got. Thank you for making the world bigger, and acknowledging it's fucking hard work. And I am very, very grateful that you do it. You made my world bigger.
Yo, Leslie, thank you so much. Like, I really appreciate you sharing the insights. Every show, I really appreciate you sharing the insights. Because we're getting close on time, I'm gonna ask you, where can folks find you, and do you have anything you want to plug?
I'm assuming you're talking about them, right? Oh, me? LeslieCamacho.com, and I'm on LinkedIn, social media, so don't try. Yeah. My website, LeslieCamacho.com, or look me up on LinkedIn. Super easy to find. So grateful to be here.
Okay, word.
Let me pass that mic real quick. This is not about me.
Leslie, I just called you Leslie. Andrew, what do you got coming up? How can folks support you? How can they hire you? Where can they find you? Plug away, please.
I just launched my first book yesterday, so I'm so excited about that. That's coming out, I don't know when. I got to talk to the editors and figure out all of the stuff that I have no idea how to do. That's coming out soon. If you want to support my work, I'm a freelancer, disability consultant. I do stuff like this. I do talks around the world about sexuality and disability, around how to make your business accessible. If you want to hire me, andrewgurza.com, or I'm very active on social media, just talking about disability justice and disability rights. Andrew Gurza 6 on Instagram and Twitter.
And we can also hire you as a disabled accessibility tester, because we have hired you for that as well. And
yes, please.
Worth the conversation and well worth paying you a good check and hiring you. That just came out weird, but
you're fine.
You're great, Andrew. Anyway, Thank you so much. Karneshia, take us out. How can folks support you, hire you? Where can they find you, follow you, and all that good stuff?
All right. I can be found on Instagram at k.chantelofficial. That is, you can find my business email there as well. I am a freelance disability advocate. I can speak at your events. I can model for you, for your brands. All of the things is found there under k.chantelofficial. And I also just launched my new business, which is Access for Accessibility. And it is a company that specializes in making events more accessible for all people with disabilities. So if you have an event, a festival, a venue, or anything that you need consultation on, make it more accessible, put me on your board so I can help you with that. Even if that is designing your stadium, I can help you with that. Accessforaccessibility.com, and that's the number 4, accessforaccessibility.com.
Thank you so much. That is dope.
Amazing.
I can't thank all of you enough for joining this today for this conversation. I'm glad we had this conversation. I think we need to be having more of these across the board. Thank you to the audience, everybody who came and listened, everybody who's going to listen in the future. This was really dope. Hoping to have more of these conversations in the near future. If you would like to follow SexTech and Chill, get more content like this, what you're watching right now, as well as conversations around sexuality and relationships, head on over to sextechandchill.com or on social media, SexTech and Chill. Don't forget to sign up for the SexTech and Chill newsletter at sextechandchill.com, especially with all the censorship happening. If you want to know more about Sherri and I's journey, head on over to FlyDuo.com. And if you want help with brand experiences, digital experience for brands, whether it's campaigns, visual design, what have you, head over to flymediaproductions.com and we'll get your shit right.
Yep. And last but not least, be sure to join us again next time on August 9th for a special Friday episode with activist, educator, performer, and award-winning filmmaker Nat Portnoy.
Dope. So sexy sign off, which we haven't.
Sexy sign off.
We haven't written yet.
That's the end.
Yeah, we had to.